Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be showing you how I like to make my beanies. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and let's get into it. So things you'll need is a yarn of your choice. I have this Space Galaxy yarn from Hobby, and you're also going to need a sewing needle, a pair of scissors, and also a crochet hook. Ideally, the smaller the better. So let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is make sure your Sentro machine is in the tube setting and that you have your white peg lined up pretty much just behind where you attach your yarn. So that's what I'm doing here, is casting on, and we're going to be alternating around and in the front of each pin until we make our way all the way back to pin number 1. They do have their numbers on, but the white pin is the last pin in the circle. So a top tip here, and one of my favorite things to make it a million times smoother when I'm using the Sentro machine, as you can see it likes to jig around if it doesn't have the feet on. If you're using the feet, make sure you use a glass table or a glass craft board because it makes your life a million times easier. When I'm filming I can't just because of the reflection, but if you use your left hand to steady the machine it makes it a lot easier. And if you're just about wondering what speed I'm cranking at, this is the speed that I go at. This isn't fast forwarded or slowed down, and this seems to work for me, and it stops stitches getting dropped, caught, any of those sort of chaotic moments you don't want to have. And I pull my yarn from the middle of the ball because I find it a lot easier, and these hobby yarns don't tangle either, so you need to make sure you have a long enough tail that the yarn isn't getting caught and it runs smoothly through the machine like it is here. And now for one of the most important moments is a coffee break. So I'm at 21 or about to start row 22, and this is where for this beanie I am going to create my brim. So what I like to do is tie off the cast on using the sewing needle. This I just find easier once you've got a couple of rows in because it can be quite fiddly otherwise. So I'm just going to create a knot where the first stitch starts and attach it to the pin 48 where that last stitch is, and just creating a nice little knot in, creating a loop and pulling nice and tight, but not so tight that you risk loosening any of the stitches. So what I'm doing now is using the crochet hook to be able to sort of double over the yarn, and this will create the brim effect. And what you want to do is try and make sure that you're not getting the cast on round. You want to make sure that you're getting at least the first stitch or the second stitch to loop over the top. And using the crochet hook, the smaller the easier, but you need to make sure that your yarn does fit nicely on it. You have to pull the stitch over the top of the hook and then crank to make sure you're then moving on to the next one. Sometimes it can get a bit tight and that makes it really difficult, which that for me, I haven't had any problems with taking the stitch below or above depending on what stitch I choose. I tend to try and stitch with the first row round above the cast on, but if I need to make it a bit looser I will go on to the second and just alternate like that. And it looks neat. You can't tell that I've taken a different stitch. It doesn't look wobbly or anything around the brim, but this is the most time-consuming process. So what I'm going to do is just show you a couple of times and then I'm going to speed through it. But if you need to go back, feel free, or you can choose to slow down this clip in the bottom right-hand corner of the YouTube settings. So I'm just about to attach the final loop onto the final pin, and that is the worst part of the process in my eyes of doing these hats, and it gets a lot easier from now on. So what we're going to do is make sure we've got enough yarn just loosely out to be able to crank through the machine, and we are going to start making the rest of our beanies. So I tend to go a bit slower on this round just because I feel like sometimes the yarn can get caught because it's been doubled over. But I go a bit slower, and then after that you can go full speed ahead and do as many rows as you want to for your hat. The more rows you do, obviously the bigger the hat will be in terms of its length, so just bear that in mind. I am just going to keep cranking through, and I'm going to wait until I have a nice gradient of colours before I decide to finish off this beanie. So I'm now at the point where I'm about to finish off my beanie and cast off. So I've hit the white pin, we're ready to cast off. So I'm going to grab a pair of scissors and make sure I cut a long enough tail thread to be able to thread all the way around the machine. It's better to have more than less because if you run out, it is a pain in the bum to have to try and attach thread and make sure it is secure. I'm just about to attach my sewing needle, so I'm just going to slip the yarn through there and make sure that is pulled through so it won't be dropping off anytime soon. Now I'm just putting the yarn inside the machine and I am going to start the process of casting off. So I'm going to take my sewing needle and crank one stitch at a time and hook the sewing needle underneath the stitch that is holding onto the machine and pull that tail yarn all the way through. When you've got a tail so long it can be a bit difficult, and you can do up to 2 of these at a time. I find when you do 3, which I have an example in this video a little later on this, it just doesn't work. It gets tangled, it becomes really messy and really difficult. But what you want to do is go all the way around, just cranking one stitch at a time and sliding that sewing needle with the yarn attached underneath the stitch and making sure that goes through. And it has to be the stitch that is on the hook, otherwise you will just lose stitches and it will sort of ruin the whole of your project. So just make sure you're doing that. That's why I do this really slowly. Again, it's quite time consuming, but you'll be grateful when you don't have to start your project from scratch. So I'm just going to keep doing this so you can see on screen, and then I'll speed through into the point where we cinch up to make our beanie and tie it off, and it's done. So we're almost there, and now you're about to see the chaos of when you try and do 3, and it gets very muddly, very tangled, and honestly I would not recommend it. So try and do 1 at a time, 2 if you want to try and speed through it, but it's better safe than sorry with this one. Obviously at this point Luna decided she would appear and join the knitting party, and I am just about to finish the hat. So I'm just going to get that last couple of stitches, which here you can see it got a bit caught, so I just had to lift that off. And then I'm going to pop my sewing needle through and pull that together. Luna obviously thought it'd be fun to play with the leftover yarn, and we're going to just pop my machine out of the way. And this is what our hat is looking like, and we just want to pull on that tail that's attached to our sewing needle. And if you find that it looks really weird, this has never happened to me before, but I was really confused on how it had bunched up, and it simply just needed to be pushed into the hole at the top. It had kind of pushed itself out. So I'm just doing that, and I'm going to pull tight, and then it will create a nice, secure, professional looking top to a hat. And what we're going to do next is just sort of use the sewing needle and that leftover tail to create a couple of knots to secure it so it doesn't come undone. So I'm just knotting away. As you do, there isn't really anything particularly special about this, but we are almost there. The more knots, obviously, the more secure it's going to be. You just want to make sure you pull them super tight and then nice and neat. And then, yes, Luna obviously, it makes me laugh watching it back. She obviously just thought it was a game, and she did skag my hat, so luckily it was on the inside, but I wasn't best pleased. And this is why I can't have nice things, is the cats like to ruin them for me. So yeah, literally pretty much done now. I'm going to take my scissors, cut the tail, and turn my hat the right way around. So snip, snip to make sure we get that cast on edge as well. You can sew them in. With hats, I don't see the point. It really is just not worth it. Apparently it looks like I'm trying to go in and do another knot and Luna is just not happy about it. I hope you're laughing at this at home too. But yes, so clearly I didn't think the million knots I already did was secure enough. So I'm just doing a couple more and I'm just going to speed through that so we can see the finished product. And here we are, that is our finished beanie. I am just going to grab another example, which is in the same style of yarn from Hobby, but in a different colorway, and I did the brim a bit bigger. And this is what they look like, so you can really play around with what you prefer and your preference for a hat. I'll put down in the description how I made them in terms of how many rows. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoy making these and I do have a good hat collection as a result. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it helps and you enjoy your hat making journey on your Sentro Addy circular knitting machine. Let me know what you want to see in the future and I will see you next time. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye!